Welcome, everyone. Great to have all of you here today as we're exploring money isn't everything. So today is November 16th. It's 2021. This is episode number 131. And like I said, we are taking a look at trait 14 in quality 1, and we're taking a look at money and resources, and we're going to take a look at how money isn't everything. So before we get started, let's say hello to our panel, and Linda is taking a much needed break, and let's start with Shelley. Hey, Shelley, welcome.
Oh goodness, had to find my mute button. Hi everybody, great to be here today. It's going to be fun to look at this trait of 14.1. Money isn't everything.
Yeah,
to see what unfolds.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Shelley, for being here. And let's go to Anna. Hello, Anna. Welcome.
Hi, glad to be here. Glad you're all with us.
Yes. And my name is Karen Sherwood. And again, welcome to our BG5 Live. So let's jump in and get started. So again, I wanted to remind you that if you are interested in getting an update every day as far as what the trait is of the day, we now have that up and running on our website. So you can go to bg5businessinstitute.com/BG5 Live, and you can subscribe and get a daily email telling you what the trait of the day is, so you can follow right along. Again, if you want to watch any of the past episodes, you can watch them in our free resource library, or you can also find them on YouTube as well. So we are in the month of November. Can you believe we're already halfway through November? I don't know where time is going, but it's certainly flying, and we're almost at the end of the year. So again, we've been taking a look at November as an alertness to our own self-expression, allowing us to break through to own our own power and focus. We started with alertness in the 44, coming to meet, right, the personnel manager. We then took a look at creative self-expression, creativity rooted in unique direction, in the 1. Then we took a look at breakthrough last week as well in the 43, insight, listening to your own inner voice. So that's what we were taking a look at last week. This week, we're going to be taking a look at power skills, that 14. I have 14 envy. I don't have 14, and it happens to be one of my bridging traits. So I'm very familiar with how you get affected when you're connected with the 14. So we'll be talking about power skills. This is possession in great measure. This is the fuel to empower. Next week, we'll take a look at personal power in the 34, and then we'll take a look at focus to wrap up November. Now, I just wanted to briefly, again, we're still in the same current environment. Again, we have the 34-2, the personal power. This is about momentum. This is a power that grows when victory is in sight. And also in the 20, in quality 2, with contemplation, the dogmatist, the restrictive and intentionally limited understanding. Again, it can be the power to lead others down a narrow path. Now, I wanted to pause here for just a moment because I just want you to take in and look at today's design. And the reason I want you to do that is take a look at all that is defined. I mean, this is quite unusual to have so much definition just on the conscious side of our design. So we can see that there is with the 19, the 19 is about, where are we? The 19 is all about resources. We can see that the resources are in the judgment, again, potentially where we get punished. We have the 49 of, really revolution of principles. We have that in our law, right? So just kind of taking a look at what's happening out in the world, and there's a lot of protests, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of uprisings around the world if you take a look at the news. So interesting to see that. We still have this 3420 as well, right? So we still are in that busy energy that's going to happen until the middle of January. So we're still experiencing that. We also have the 1-8. We talked about the one last week. We have this creative self-expression. This is part of communication currently. Also, it's in the driving force currently as, no, that's the 3, sorry. Where's the 8? Oh, there it is. Oh, it is the grounding. The 8 in the grounding and the communication. So we have the 1-8. We have inspiration going on as well. And we have the 61-24. We have the 61 of truth and transformation. With what's unusual in the 24, also creating definition. So we have pressure, we have mental pressure, we have physical pressure, we have the pressure of the energy resource. So there's a lot going on right now. So if you're a little bit exhausted, if you're a little bit tired, if you're like a little overwhelmed with everything that's going on, either personally or in the world, you can see there's quite a bit of definition. So it can be quite overwhelming. I don't know, Anna or Shelley, if you can relate to any of this, or if there's anything that you see or pops up in taking a look at, again, how much is defined currently. And again, this is what we're all experiencing as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Karen, because that is a lot of definition and basically completes my entire chart, those top 4 being filled in. I definitely have been feeling the mental pressure and the 1-8 being defined as well, because I'm currently working on a new website to market myself. And it's a really focused short period of time that I'm doing that through. It's also really interesting just to see so many motors defined and having the emotional center defined as well. I have that anyway in my design, but I'm recognizing that there's lots of people out there who don't have it defined, almost half the population, that may be feeling a lot more emotional at this time as well. So it's been interesting because the last few weeks, I think I was sharing this with you last time, have been extremely busy. And in the last 2 weeks, we've probably seen, my husband and I, about 20 people that we haven't seen over the last couple of years, just with all of the restrictions. And I was trying to figure out why. And I think it was when the 1 was defined for the week, which is all about creativity through interaction. So I thought, wow, there's so much interaction happening right now. And it's all of a sudden just sort of came to an end middle of last week. And on Sunday, we just kind of went, whew, can we just take a day to ourselves to just relax and get back to, the routine we were in that was feeling really great. So it has been quite busy and, but in a really good way. It has been fun times to have the ability to reconnect. So that's been something happening in my life that I've noticed. How about you, Anna?
Yeah, I had to find my mute button too. What I noticed yesterday, I went to the park. And it was at a time of day when hardly anybody was there. And I realized I just needed no definition. No, I needed space because I'm still limited in my contact with people, but the people I'm with are generators or express builders. And it's just been too much energy for me. And even if I, did my little hermit thing and kind of cloistered myself a little bit, it was just still too much. So I just spontaneously found myself at this really beautiful, wide open grass field. And I thought, that's what I needed, just to get out of this energy for a little bit, this human force, of dynamic energy. That's what I noticed.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Linda's taking a break today. So again, just the energy, the overwhelming feeling like there's so much going on. And I like, Shelley, that you also pointed out that the emotional intelligence is also defined, and how it's defined is this ratchet up wave, right? That ratchets it up, ratchets up, right? And then can explode. So just something to pay attention to so that if you see it in your own life or you see it out in the world, recognize that it's built into the design of this time, and it's going to be around for a little while, since it is in judge and discipline, as well as the law, right? Our personal law. And so it's going to be around for a little bit longer. That moves a little bit and changes a little bit slower. So just to be aware. All right, so let's dive into today's theme. So today's theme is all about power skills. This is the treasure. This is what I think of when I think of 14. It's the treasure. It's possession in great measure. It's the fuel to empower. This is the accumulation and retention of power and wealth through skilled interaction, coupled with grace with control. So it's the potential to empower the direction of others through the distribution of available resources. And it's also the management of resources. So even if you have this in your design, it may not be about, in a sense, gaining resources or managing your own resources, but you can be very good at managing the resources of others. So the management of resources in order to empower others, to support creativity, to support charitable activities, or leaders with a vision for the future. And it's really important that you use your resources wisely. Throwing money at everything and everyone is a poor way to invest your valuable resources. So often if someone has the 14, they can often be stingy, right? Holding on to wealth. One of the things that we take a look at in OC 16, we take a look at different power bases, right? And where different traits have a particular power base that supports them. One of the things that's interesting about the 14, it's the only one that doesn't have a power base. It has its strength in and of itself. And in an OC 16, right, you have to make sure that you have a very solid plan to present to the 14, who holds the treasure, in order for the treasure to be released. Because oftentimes with the 14 doesn't know where or how to release its treasure. And so sometimes it can be very stingy, holding on to wealth. You wouldn't even know that it's wealthy. It often pretends like it's not. And again, but this is the storehouse. This is possession in great measure. And so it has to have a concrete plan in order to release the treasure. We talk a lot about that in OC 16. And this is the main energy source of both small groups and large groups. In a small group, in a penta, it's known as capacity. It really is where all of the energy filters through in a unidirectional way, where all the energy filters through the 14 of capacity of the finances in order to support the business. This is also one of the traits that is not only in the penta, which is the small group dynamics, you can also find it in the large group dynamics as well. So it really, in a sense, is one of those key traits that really holds everything together. So I would love to hear both from Shelley and Anna. How does this show up for you? And again, anyone who's attending live in our Zoom room, especially if you do have trait 14, we would love to hear from you as well. How about for you, Anna?
Yeah, I do not have this trait, but I have the 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice, even before, as I reflect back, even before I was introduced to human design BG5, there was always this flow of resources, or sometimes this very stark moment where there was no resources. So it was very aware of that dynamic in my life. And then as I became more aware of, the mechanics of the 214, I realized I have a bunch of people that have the trait 14, and fascinating dynamics, all kinds of things. So I get influenced, I get conditioned in sometimes very, very wonderful ways. And then when they're not around, sometimes I just feel this gap. That's all I can say. This sort of gap in my energy current. And it's just been really fascinating because it's not just money, resources. It's the resource to elevate your life, you know, to be able to move on, to have a better life. And so that includes a whole lot of dimension. One of the things I was reflecting on here is when we talk about the profit potential, we talk about currency and the change in the flow of how money in particular is moving more, instead of an old school top down pattern of business. Literally, it is becoming more of a regenerative mind frame as we're moving into 2027 of top down, down top. You know, that there's a cyclical recognition of each person in that cycle, not just somebody dominating the resources. And that all has to do with currency, how the energy flows, how money flows, or resources of health and food and all of that stuff. And right now in you know, we're having discussions about the distribution, you know, the lack of supplies in stores and things. So, you know, it's very literal right now about, you know, resources for people. And the other thing I want to plug in is resources. Again, if you want to plug in the regenerative culture, whether you're in regenerative business or regenerative agriculture, it's the soil that's your basic resource. And a lot of the soil is literally being depleted, and there's a big movement to generate natural ability in the soil to balance itself, to feed the crops, to feed the animals that eat the crops, to feed the people that eat the crops, you know, that kind of thing. And in business, the soil, or in BG5, the soil that we're actually talking about is the mechanics, is the design mechanics. So and I also think right now there's a lot of attention to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So this whole framework of currency and the current of how energy is flowing through distribution channels, through the economy, through a whole different level of monetary resource. That's what I plug into when I think about the description of 14.
Yes. Yeah. Very fascinating. And I see that, Debbie, you have 14 in the conscious future direction, and you have it in the unconscious judge and discipline. And one of your professional gifts is as a CFO, managing business, finances, and resources. We'd love to hear from you, Debbie, if you would like to join us.
Hi, Karen. Yes, I'd join us.
There you are.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. When I learned about human design, I was fascinated by this because I have it, as I shared, unconscious and conscious, but it's a gift that I give to others. And when it's for the purpose of others and not for myself, how this shows up is when my husband and I got married, and he's an engineer, and he set up Quicken, and he manages all the finances, and he didn't understand why I did it for others, but I wouldn't do it for us. And I said, it's because that's just what I do. I don't need to do it for us. And he's certainly, I mean, I've changed that. I mean, I'm certainly on board with him, but it's just fascinating how I do this naturally with many different businesses, also with the charity that I work with. I'm the treasurer, and I help manage the finances, but I also, the executive director has a 214 unconscious. And when we come together, it's just so beautiful how things just come out of both of us. And we get so many ideas. And it's about what can we do with the resources that we have? And it's not just about money, it's just ideas and, what can we do to promote Support 7 better, things like that. So it's really cool how it shows up naturally in the work that I do.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said with I just lost my train of thought. What was I going to bring forth?
My husband, with what my husband
Oh
had to
no,
share?
no, that
Oh.
one of the things that you said with the 14, that it's managing other people's money.
Yes.
And one of the things that's very interesting about this is that the 14 is an individual strength. However, even though it's an individual strength, because it's in the small group, because it's the foundation of a small group as well as a large group, it really is the resources of others that is being managed, and not always your own resources. So I thought that was fascinating what you shared there, Debbie. Exactly. Thank you so much, Debbie. And Shelley.
That's so fascinating, Karen, what Debbie's just shared and what you pulled out there, because I don't have the 14, but I have the 2. And so like Anna, I've experienced the inconsistency of resources being there and not being there. And in fact, in a lot of my work life, mostly what I've been doing is fighting for resources to get the projects done that I need to do. So it was interesting to me to hear that. The other thing is fascinating for me is that my husband does have the full strength, the 14, and he's doing this in the background. He has the 2 and the 14. And his work, and that has been his work for the majority of his life, has been to manage other people's finances. It's in helping them know how to invest their money for their future. So, and about accumulating and retaining their wealth over time, and educating them on how to utilize all of the things that are available to them in order to accumulate resources and use those resources wisely. He's the best at knowing what all of the rules are, and people are fascinated when he shows them how they may think they don't have any resources or enough to invest, but when he shows them all of the things they're able to work with, all of a sudden I've watched him build portfolios for people out of what the clients think was nothing, and all of a sudden there's resources there. And it's fascinating, Debbie, what you were sharing. Same thing. I don't have the 14 yet. I was the one managing our finances for 30 years, and not necessarily so well. I mean, I guess I did, because I was having to rob Peter to pay Paul to make sure the kids had all their sports and we got everything managed. And I think having the 45 in my design, I do like to oversee that anyhow. But in this past couple of years, I finally convinced him to take it on. Because he told me, he said, you probably won't like it if I do it, because you won't get to buy all the things you think you want, because he'll be a little more stingy with it. Not that he doesn't want us to have things. He's very great at supporting causes and sponsoring different events and things. But he's much more focused and way more skilled at staying on track with his budget. And I think because I have the 60 and the 3, which is all about, that comes through me in times where I never know when I'm going to be bringing something new in and I need resources to enact it right now. That would be what would have me finding money for it. Whether we had it or not, I'd find a way to find the money, where he's much more focused and consistent, and it's consistent and reliable for him, so he can rely on it, where I can't. It kind of comes and goes for me. So really interesting to hear all of the everyone else's perspective and how it has I've experienced all of that as well.
Exactly. And it's really fascinating how it shows up again in your business, Debbie, and your husband's business, Shelley.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
really, yeah.
there was one more thing that came to me yesterday. I was paying attention to the climate accord going on in Scotland and found a link somewhere that I was sharing with my husband because he pays attention to this and how he works with all the different fund companies investing. And I found online that there was a decision made by about 30 banks and fund companies speaking to what Anna was talking about, the soil and agriculture. These fund companies and banks have made a commitment to no longer fund those agricultural businesses that are wiping out the environment. They are only going to be funding and providing money for people that are doing it in a regenerative, restorative way. So I was thrilled to see that because once a few people do that, that starts to take on, will create its own momentum to move forward. And thank goodness it's been so long that it's taken so long to bring that awareness to the finance companies to pay attention to who they're giving their money to. I've been watching that unfold over the last 10 or 15 years as well. So it's been fascinating to see that come out of the talks recently.
Yeah. Wow. Really fascinating. And, you know, also one of the things I know, Debbie, you said that you have it in your conscious future direction. What we are going to be moving into after we move out of the 3420 is we're going to be moving into the 14.8 as a background frequency that will be in for a while. So probably towards the beginning of the year, there's going to be a lot of discussion on finance. There's going to be a lot of discussion on money and resources and things like that. So just something to pay attention to as well. Yeah. And Debbie was saying what's fascinating is the contrast that it's an individual circuit, yet it's managing others' resources. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If I may share a little story,
please.
a quick story. So, and this is when I was working in corporate America as a CFO. So we had a situation occur where a company decided to file bankruptcy, and they had over $500,000 in receivables that they owed us. And so, but they wanted to continue purchasing product from us. And so I have no idea how it happened. It just did, but I was able to negotiate that they wanted, that they would have to pay, I think it was a $1 million deal, but that they would have to pay for it in advance. And when I did that, the CEO was like, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that?" And I said, "I don't know. It just happened. And let's just move forward and say yay for the company, because we were not going to be able to recoup that other $500,000, but we still got something better out of it." So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to direct those resources and large amount of resources as well. Yeah, definitely. And I think both Anna and Shelley, as well as myself, have the 2, but not the 14. So the 3 of us are very familiar with how you get affected when you're connected. So again, the shadow of trait 14, or when you don't have trait 14, how does it show up? So again, especially if you have trait 2 on the other side, but you don't have the 14. So the question is, do you feel a lack of resources that you need in order to fulfill your vision? Or do you feel guilty in asking for help? The problem is that you have a vision and you think that you have to do it all yourself. And you get frustrated because you don't have the resources or the energy to do it yourself. You can feel exhausted trying to do it all yourself. And you may feel guilty when you accept resources from others. You work hard, but you often feel like you're getting nowhere because your vision is so big. And here's the solution. So the solution is that you are a visionary with a plan for a new way forward, but you are not here to provide the resources to make it happen. So it's about finding allies with the power and the resources that you need to bring your vision into reality. So again, this is one of my bridging traits. This is something that I understand very well, and I often connect with a lot of people who have the 14. It's one of the fascinating things with the BG5 Business Institute. I have the 2, and Linda Brunel, she has the 14. And so she has the resources for me to be able to do what I do and do what I love. So again, a great illustration of that connection and how, again, one of the things that I've tried to do a lot of businesses by myself. I have a collaborative assimilation and I could always get so far. But again, like Shelley was saying and Anna was saying before, like the resources weren't consistent. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes you're juggling everything to try to figure out how to get those resources. So resources tend to always be a struggle. And one of the things that I found as soon as I started to collaborate and started to work with others. So again, especially if it is a bridging trait, it is something that you are really naturally designed to work with others in collaboration. And the two of you working together is what provides both the resources and the vision to move things forward. So Anna or Shelley, if there's a little bit more that you would like to share about your experience of this shadow of the 14.
Yeah, I like what you just said, because I've experienced very much what you just said. Early on, I used to feel guilty and not ask for help or money or resources, or at a certain time, when I was super broke, somebody was saying, "Oh, you should file for food stamps," and it never even occurred to me. It just, those were resources I didn't even think about, and I was able to get them and that kind of thing. But that's just a little tiny example that there's resources all over the place. Like Debbie was saying, and Shelley, it takes the 14 to plug you in to those resources. And I've noticed with the because I'm collaborative as well, just not knowing my design previously and being an innovator and certain other characteristics of my chart, I was very independent and self-sufficient. A lot of that was conditioning, some of it's other things. But once I realized, oh, I'm a collaborator by nature, that feels so good to me. That made a huge difference in understanding the natural need for another person to help you. It's not a deficit. It's that you're meant for partnership. You're meant for that exchange. And that made a big difference in this whole shadowy, turned it into wisdom.
Yes. Yeah, beautifully said, Anna. How about for you, Shelley?
Yeah, this much like what you've said. What's interesting for me is I'm an independent assimilator and I've got the 45 as my life's work. So I'm meant to be in charge. And I definitely was the same. It's like, nope, I can do this all myself. I don't need anybody. And I would even, in times when things did get really, really tight, I was shocked that people came forward and just offered me resources. I couldn't accept them almost. I felt guilty taking them. I felt like, no, I need to just figure this out and do it all by myself. And so, yeah, that's been a theme throughout my life. And I have had a couple of my own businesses, and again, the resources are inconsistent. So I probably, several of the businesses that I've owned, I've always managed to create enough business and enough money coming in to pay everybody else, but not myself. And eventually end up having to shut it down because I just can't carry on that way. So this is really fascinating for me to find out that the 14 may be a real key for me to be able to sustain a business longer term. And luckily, my husband has that, and we have built many businesses together. When we do it together, it works much better and it does sustain itself. We've built a few businesses that have lasted, nearly 20 years and or more. So, and I do have an older sister who's got the 14, and of everyone in our family, she's the one who's got the most resources. And to her, it's just a natural thing. She doesn't understand why everybody else doesn't know how to do what she does. And we're all looking at her like, we don't know how you do that. So it's funny to see when people have it naturally, how they also don't understand why other people can't do it just as easily. So I think that's a really fascinating trait to be aware of, for sure.
Exactly. My mom has that strength of the 214, and it's the strength of direction. The same thing where it's she's always taking care of all of the finances for for our family.
Mhm.
And she always teases me because because I don't do it very well.
Well, and my sister is an accountant and an MBA, and my mother was also an accountant too, though it's not natural in her design to do that. She also did it. And so my sister is the accountant for everyone in the family, doing our taxes. And even though we know how to do them and we have done them for years, we've now, since she's got her own practice, just handed over to her because we know they're getting done exactly right. And it's less work for us.
Yeah, there you go.
It's been really great for me to let go of some of this stuff that I've been trying to do my whole life, feeling like I wasn't good enough at it and trying harder and harder to get it right. But yet literally feeling the challenge it is for my brain to pay attention to all of those details that don't come necessarily naturally. I was taught by my mom how to do the accounting. And so picked that up and did that and felt like it was my duty to do that and wouldn't let go of it. So it's great. It's been great these last couple of years learning about this to say, hey, I don't need to do that. It actually really stresses me out to have to do all of this. So I'm going to give it to somebody who knows how to do it naturally.
Exactly. And working in collaboration with someone that it comes naturally with. Yeah, love it.
Something too. In the previous slide, the word grace stood out to me because that's a resource a lot of people don't use. We tend to control. We tend to think of, let's control the resources and control our bank account and all that stuff. But when you're really in the mode of grace, your whole design naturally works better for you. The whole idea of the monopole guiding you, whatever your spiritual temperament is, to me, that's the bridge between, divine intelligence or organic intelligence, that higher level of intelligence that's available in our body. But grace, we don't always, you can't control grace. So there's a really interesting juxtaposition of control and grace. And it's often, all those stories of successful business people that had to crash or made 10 mistakes or whatever before they were successful. Always there's that moment where they had to surrender, or they hit bottom, or they had some inspiration or something, and that was from grace. That was some higher level intervention. That's a really wonderful resource that, depending on where you are in life and things, that I've noticed for myself, the more I depend on that resource, the better things flow.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Anna. Yeah. And as we continue to talk about resources, let's also take a look at today's quality as well. Because if we take a look at today's quality, it's in quality 1. So it's the authority. It's about money isn't everything, right? Kind of going back to what you were talking about as well, Anna, where it's more than just money. It is resources, but it's not everything. So money isn't everything. The recognition that wealth has its own problems. And the elevation is the key to manifesting power is higher principles. And this kind of goes to what you were talking about, Anna, with that grace, right? And allowing that flow and really, in a sense, earning and using the money really for a higher purpose, not for the money itself. It's the lust for monetary gain tempered by higher principles, right? So it is using these power skills in a way that has a higher calling, if you will. Now, whenever we take a look at quality 1, this is also the foundation as well. So if we take a look at the foundation of the 14, right, it's more than just the money, which we've been talking about. The challenge, however, is that the energy alone can never be the key. The delusion that you can throw money at a problem, right? The illusion that, just throw money at it, spending money to get rid of the problem will not necessarily get rid of the problem. Sometimes, again, the recognition that wealth has its own problems. You may create additional problems, or you're not really solving the problem, you're just covering it up. So really taking a look at how you utilize your money, and if you are using it and your resources, and if you are using it in a way that's really about using it in alignment with higher principles. Again, this is why part of this is an individual, even though it's individual, and it's within the individual circuitry, it really is in service of a smaller group or in service of a larger group as well. So I'd love to hear Shelley or Anna or Debbie, if there's anything that you would like to add to that, or anything you've noticed with that. And also if there's anyone who has joined us that has trait 14, specifically if you have trait 14 in quality 1, we would love to hear from you as well. And you can just raise your hand if you would like to share.
I'll add something again. In this, the challenge, throwing money at problems, a lot of times in our culture and our society, we tend to throw money at the poor, even that the way we talk about that, it's offensive. But something like homelessness, people often try to throw money at the homeless or build houses for them or whatever, but it doesn't recognize you. And you mentioned that word, Karen, if the energy of what creates homelessness isn't addressed, if the higher principle isn't discovered, the problem is not going to go away no matter what the financial resources are, because there's a whole mindset, a whole culture, and I'm not talking negative or positive, but there are some people love the homeless life because it's an alternative culture, even though it's a hard life. So when you start to understand what is the higher principle at work in a business, in a social problem, in a health problem, any of these things, that's when you start to get the transformation, which is really what this trait is about.
Yeah, beautifully said, Anna. Anything you'd like to add, Shelley?
Yeah, and I think just listening to that, Anna, what that brings up for me is the shadow or wisdom of this, having this trait open, is being able to see where resources are being spent correctly or not, where money is just being thrown at a problem when you know that's not going to solve the issue, or seeing a real huge waste of money when you know that it's just covering up a problem, or it's going to go to all the wrong things that won't resolve the problem anyway. That really bugs me. I think that's just part of having this open, being able to experience that in different ways, especially when there's a lack of resources that are really needed, that can be directed appropriately, that could really make a big difference. It really upsets me when I see things being directed in ways that it's common sense or obvious that that's not going to do anything, and it's actually going to make things worse. So
yeah, exactly. And it looks like Vicky has the conscious and unconscious in quality 5 and 6, and she's an evaluator, and it's in an open function. And yes, seeing the mismanagement of resources is disappointing. Exactly. Yeah, really great example, Shelley. And again, an illustration of, again, the foundation of what this trait is all about, making sure that you're using your resources properly. All right, let's take a look at our celebrity. So our celebrity is Lauren Hutton. And the life work theme, this is the core essence of the 14-1. Your life work theme is contagion. You are committed to making a potential contribution to society through your accumulation and retention of power or money and resources used wisely to empower or fuel humanity's growth, development, and evolution. She is a model and an actress, and though she was originally dismissed by agents for her signature gap in the teeth, so she has a gap in between her teeth. Hutton signed a modeling contract with Revlon in 1973, which at the time was the biggest contract in history of the modeling agents of the modeling industry. Right, so just an example of attracting that those resources. And again, she worked both as a model and as an actress. I know, Anna, I don't know if you're familiar with her, or Shelley, you're familiar with her.
Yeah, it was a big deal, a really big deal, because that was her signature, her sense of originality. And at that time, that's kind of, it was just the edge of being able to be differently beautiful. And that's really what she represented. And, you know, she did have a fake tooth that she could put in, you know, according to what she needed. But that was what was attractive about her.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. All right. Well, let's wrap everything up. And again, if you want to ponder, and I'd love to hear from you, Debbie, also as we when we wrap things up. What are some things for people to pay attention to as we go through this week? And again, if you want to find out, do you have trait 14? Do you not have trait 14? You can download your free personalized chart at the BG5 Business Institute website. Again, you can subscribe to the trait of the day if you want to see what trait it is each day. And as the qualities change, one of the best ways to learn, especially if you're learning BG5, if you're learning it in a deeper way, one of the greatest ways to learn is learning from the environment as you go through each day. So it's a great way to each day learn a little bit more about each of the traits and see how it's reflected in the world. So I invite you to subscribe to the trait of the day. And again, you can visit our website, go to bg5businessinstitute.com/BG5-live. And again, you can watch our past episodes either on YouTube or in our free resource library. And we have classes starting in January. So registration is open. Would love to have you attend some of our classes. If you are just starting out the foundation course, you can sign up to attend the first class free, get a feel for what it's all about. And we look forward to seeing you in January. All right, so let's wrap everything up for today and taking a look at trait 14. We're going to be in trait 14 this entire week. So what are some things for people to pay attention to notice, to observe, to take in, or any other recommendations that you have for everyone as we go through the trait of power, of the power skills of 14?
I'll go again.
Yes.
We're heading into the holidays. And this is a time when a lot of people spend money, and the economy needs you to spend money and all of that, especially in the US. I would just observe or witness what your perspective is on resources. Do you need to spend money on gifts? Do you have things to exchange with people? You know, what about this whole formula in our economics that says you have to give gifts at, you know, buy everything right now? I would just observe your own impulses on whether it's time to retract what you spend, whether it's time to be more generous with what you spend, what kinds of gifts you're thinking of, whether you want to volunteer your time, which is a resource, whether you want to meditate with people, which is a resource. You know, there's just all kinds of ways to be generous and gifting without having to spend money that maybe you don't have. or maybe you have a bunch of money and you want to distribute it. But just my recommendation would be observe your relationship with that sort of cultural demand right now to use money as a resource, because there's other ways to give.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Anna. Thank you so much. How about for you, Debbie?
Yeah, I don't have anything at this time.
All right. Perfect. Beautiful. Well, thank you for your contribution. It's always great to have you join us.
That was wonderfully said, Anna. We've been reflecting on all of that over the last number of years, actually, because the holidays can be a really stressful time. And as much as it's, tradition, we're really starting to slowly watch it fade away or change a lot in our life, for sure, and are a lot more cognizant about how we're uh, creating different traditions for our grandkids, like watching that happen for our kids. And because we seem to have gotten to this place in humanity where there's so much available for everybody to really get for themselves whatever things they need. Everything's so readily available and inexpensive, and there's all kinds of other issues with that. But a lot of people around us have noticed too over the last number of years have said, I don't really need anything for Christmas. And the gift isn't the same as when you go back a few generations and recognize that our parents maybe got $1, one toy, because things were scarce. And that in our generation, it kind of exploded. And then in our kids' generation, it's gotten even busier and bigger. And our grandkids were watching the electronics and the tools and everything that they're getting. It doesn't, again, the commercialization of it is the part that's bothered us. I love that you pointed out, Anna, that resources come in many ways, that just even spending time together or volunteering your time or being part of the community in a different way, or sharing time with your family in a different way is just as can sometimes feel even more empowering, or because this is an individual trait about empowerment and how actually all of us are managing, expending, and gathering our resources. So I would say, the next week would be a great time to kind of pay attention to what that looks like in your life. How are you attracting resources? What resources are coming to you naturally by just kind of staying aligned with your own decision-making strategy? What shows up for you? How are you feeling drawn to expending your resources, or what things do you put your time and attention and resources towards now? Because there's so much opportunity to have that show up in many creative ways, since we were looking at creative expression last week as well. So many ways to distribute beauty and joy and health and wealth and happiness in the world nowadays. So it's really great to just watch and see how that plays out, how that shows up for you.
Yes, beautifully said, Shelley. And Vicky is saying, if quality time spent well, it is uplifting and empowering for those involved. Exactly. And Lisa says, I noticed I hardly need much at all to be fulfilled, which I love. Right. So again, just paying attention to, resources and money as well. What is your relationship with money itself? Right. Again, our theme today is, it's not all about the money, right? So where are your higher principles coming into play? How are you using your resources? How are you not using your resources? And making sure that it's all balanced. Yeah. And Lisa's saying, I noticed the not sell 14 wastes a lot of money. Right. It can. So taking a look at where you might be wasting money as well. All right. Well, fabulous and amazing discussion today. Thank you, Shelley and Anna and Debbie and everyone who participated here in the live Zoom room, as well as on Facebook, and also those of you who are listening via the recording. So let's wrap up for today. And again, pay attention to your resources, follow your decision-making strategy, and we'll see you all next week. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.